Did you know that all humans come from Africa? It's true. Africa is like the starting point for the whole human story. Let's go on an adventure through time and discover some of the coolest things that happened there. Way back, over 300,000 years ago, the very first humans, called Homo sapiens, were hanging out in Africa. Imagine that. Places like Jebel Irhoud in Morocco and Omo Kaibish and Hato in Ethiopia are super important because scientists found old fossils there, showing us how long people have been around in Africa. Now, let's zoom forward a bit to ancient Egypt. You've probably heard of it. It was a super powerful civilization that grew up along the Nile River. It all started around 3100 BC when a leader named Nama united Upper and Lower Egypt. And guess what? They built giant pyramids like the Great Pyramid of Giza for Pharaoh Khufu around 2600 BC. Ancient Egypt lasted for over 3,000 years, which is longer than your parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents have been alive, all put together. But Africa wasn't just about Egypt. There were tons of other amazing kingdoms and empires too. First, there's the Kingdom of Kush, which was south of Egypt, in what is now Sudan. They were so strong that they even ruled Egypt for a while. Then, there's the Aksumite Empire in Ethiopia and Eritrea. They were one of the first big countries to become Christian way back in the 4th century, all thanks to King Ezana. Now, let's head west to the Ghana Empire. Don't get it mixed up with modern Ghana, okay? This Ghana was in Mauritania and Mali, and it was super rich and powerful from about 300 to 1200 C. After Ghana, the Mali Empire rose to power. This empire got really famous because of its ruler, Mansa Musa, who was in charge in the 1300s. He was so rich that when he went on a trip to Mecca, he brought so much gold that it made the price of gold go down. The Songhai Empire came next in the 1400s. Askir the Great, who started ruling in 1493, made it even bigger and better. Let's travel south now to Great Zimbabwe. It was a huge city with amazing stone buildings, all built without using any cement. It was around from the 11th to the 15th centuries. And then there's the Benin Kingdom in Nigeria. They were super talented artists, especially when it came to making bronze and brass sculptures. They started getting really good at that in the 13th century. Finally, let's talk about the Kanem-Bornu Empire near Lake Chad. It lasted for a really long time, starting way back in the 9th century. So, how did these empires get so powerful? Well, one big reason was trade. For hundreds of years, people were trading goods across the Sahara Desert. They traded things like gold, salt, ivory, cloth, and unfortunately, sometimes even people were traded as slaves. Cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Jen became really important because they were centers of trade and learning. Speaking of learning, Africa has always been a place where people valued knowledge. Timbuktu became especially famous for its books and Islamic learning from the 14th to the 16th centuries. And in many West African societies, there were special storytellers called griots who kept the history alive by telling stories and remembering important events. Now, let's talk about something a bit sadder. In the 1800s, European countries started trying to take over Africa. This was called the Scramble for Africa. They had a meeting in Berlin in 1884 and 1885 where they divided up Africa among themselves without even asking the African people what they wanted. By 1914, almost all of Africa was controlled by Europe, except for Liberia and Ethiopia. But the African people didn't give up. After World War II, they started fighting for their independence. In 1960, so many countries became independent that it's called the Year of Africa. And in 1963, they created an organization called the Organization of African Unity to help each other. Nowadays, it's called the African Union. Africa is an amazing and diverse place with over 50 countries and thousands of different cultures and languages. It's not just about Egypt and slavery. It's also about early farmers, iron workers, big trading cities, powerful kings and queens, religious centers, and sailors. And guess what? Women were in charge too. Like Queen Hatshepsut in Egypt, who ruled as pharaoh, and Queen Amenarinas of Kush, who fought against the Romans. Also, the Swahili coast linked East Africa to countries like Arabia, Persia, India, and even China. Cities like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar were important trading spots. And don't forget the amazing architecture and engineering. Great Zimbabwe was built without cement, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela were carved out of solid rock, and the Mosque of Jen is the biggest mud brick building in the world. Many African empires had governments with officials, taxes, laws, and armies. They controlled trade routes and collected taxes. They were also good at making things out of metal. Ironworking spread across Africa a long time ago, and the Nok culture in Nigeria made cool terracotta sculptures and used iron really early. Africa is super important because it's where humans first started. It's the starting point for all of us. The gold from West Africa helped trade happen in North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. East African ports connected Africa to the rest of the Indian Ocean world. Ancient Egypt influenced other civilizations, Christianity started early in Ethiopia, and Islam spread across North, West, and East Africa. But colonialism changed a lot. It changed the borders, economies, languages, and governments. It also made some problems worse, like border issues and unequal development. But the independence movement helped weaken European empires. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, and Jomo Kenyatta became heroes. Today, many African borders are still the ones that Europeans drew a long time ago. Coastal trade is still important in East Africa, and the old trade routes still shape economies and cultures. Africa is still multilingual, with languages like English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic, but also African languages like Swahili, Yoruba, and Zulu. Christianity, Islam, and African traditional religions are still important. And countries often use old histories as part of their national identity, like Zimbabwe using Great Zimbabwe. So, next time you think about history, remember Africa. It's the home of humanity, the land of amazing empires, and a place full of incredible stories waiting to be discovered. What part of African history did you find most surprising?